I'm Abner Ramos. I am the Associate Coaching Director for InterVarsity. I basically help train up coaches who are helping other students, staff, alumni, pastors of the community, plant ministries all over the country. So what I do is I'm housed in the planting department, and I run something in InterVarsity called the Coaching Center. So if you guys are familiar with the Adopt a Campus curriculum, it's a planting curriculum that you can find at the InterVarsity website. It helps you reach new campuses. The team that I lead helps people execute that. So I work in planting. Rigo?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Abner. So again, my name is Rigo. I'm currently a USC student studying applied math and was the former area leader of La Fe at USC. So was leading it for about 2.5 years, and currently now I am also just similar to Abner, just now training that next leader for La Fe currently right now, and also trying to coach other students who are also in our InterVarsity chapter as well.
Awesome. So Rigo and I have been working for like 1.5 years. You'll hear a little bit more of our story as we're unpacking all the training today. But the purpose of the training today is really to help staff think about how to empower student coaches, and for students, so a lot of you guys on this call are student leaders, helping you develop as coaches also, okay? Well, one of the passages that really excites me, I'm going to screen share real quick. When I think about, coaching and empowering people is 2 Timothy 2:1 and 2. Some of you guys have done this in inductive Bible studies on your leadership teams, and and when you think about discipleship on campus, this is what Paul tells a younger Timothy. He says, "You then, my child, be strong in the grace that is in Christ Jesus, and what you have heard from me through many witnesses, entrust to faithful people who will be able to teach others as well." And one of the things that I love about this passage is here you have the Apostle Paul nearing the end of his life, giving advice to a younger leader. Timothy was the pastor at the church of Ephesus, and these are some of Paul's last words. And he says, "Hey, what you have heard from me, you need to be able to pass on to other people, and not just anybody, right? But other people who are going to be able to teach others as well." In other words, the people that you're investing in leadership are people that need to have the capacity and the ability and the desire to train other people so that the church could grow and the gospel could continue, right? And if you think about your growth as a leader, somebody entrusted what they knew to you, and you're currently most likely entrusting what you know to other people, probably younger believers. And this has been happening in church history for over 2,000 years. So one of our main desires today is to really help you replicate yourself, your leadership, and what the Lord has done in you for the sake of the ministry continuing on your campus, okay? One of the things, okay, so really quickly, Rigo, can you give them an overview about what we're doing today?
Yeah, of course. So again, these are just some of the things that Abner and I found to be very important when it comes to not only just like leading students, but also like coaching. And so the number one thing, we both really heavily agree on this, is life with God. Again, you can do so many things, but without God, none of these things would either matter or even just come to fruition. The second thing we're talking about is a very helpful resource, one that Abner actually taught me, and I actually used to teach other students as well, which is network mapping. The next thing we're going to talk about is simply just having those goals, not only having goals, but having them clear, whether that's through like your mission statement, vision statement, or simply just what is the next task that you have for your ministry. And the last thing, which I found to be very important, especially with sessions with Abner, was just accountability. Having that person there to not only encourage you, but also to remind you of like those goals that we're going to be talking about.
So that's our agenda for today. And really, Rigo and I have been going back and forth about everything that we wanted to teach. And really, we left some things out just because we have an hour. But these are the 4 things that we decided needed to get talked about today. All right, so my most important thing when I think about coaching, first lesson in any coaching module, training for both staff and students that I give, some of you have probably been in some of my trainings already. I always go back to life with God. And the reason that I do that is because I think sometimes when we think about leadership, replicating ourselves, we get really caught up in the strategy of it all, right? I'm going to teach you how to lead a Bible study. I'm going to teach you how to identify your network of friends and how to use that to make a plan. In other words, all those things are very next step, strategic, type thinking, which is very important. We'll get a little bit more into that in a bit. But really, if our life with God is not where it needs to be, if my life with God isn't where it needs to be, I have nothing to offer Rigo. And if Rigo's life with God is not where it needs to be, he has nothing to offer the people that he's mentoring and coaching. And he's not going to be able to receive whatever it is that, that we're talking about. So there are a few passages that I love to focus on when I think about life with God. So I'm going to unpack some of the passages, talk about implications. But he was going to talk about how these things have been important in his ministry. And I'm going to open it up to you guys to react to it. So at the top of my list, when I do training on life with God, I always come back to John 15:5 through 8. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to highlight the first verse, which I think is really important. Jesus says, "I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you could do nothing." All right, so if you forget anything else that I talk about life with God this afternoon, don't forget that last part of verse 5. Apart from Jesus, you could do nothing. Everything that we do in ministry needs to come out of our love for Jesus and Jesus' love for us. That means spending time with Jesus, being with Jesus. It's being with Jesus that's going to bring conviction, that's going to bring wisdom, it's going to bring everything that you need, not just for your coaching sessions, but in your life as a believer. So apart from Jesus, we could do nothing. The other passage that I really love to talk about is Luke 10:17. Jesus sends out the 72 and they return with joy, right? Like these guys have just been casting out demons. They've been performing signs and wonders. And Jesus' perspective on this whole situation, when you look at the last sentence here, it says, "Do not rejoice that the spirits submit to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven." In other words, these guys just went out, casted out demons, did some amazing ministry, right? Probably more amazing ministry that most of us in this call have ever done in our lives. I don't know how many of you guys have gone out and just like casted out a bunch of demons in one day and come back and rejoice about it. Even in this like amazing day of ministry, Jesus still says, don't rejoice just in that. It's almost like Jesus expects that these things are going to happen. He gave them the authority to do that. That's expected. He's like, no, don't rejoice in that, but rejoice in your name, that your names are written in heaven. In other words, God's book of life, right? That rejoice in the fact that you are a part of God's family. So again, he's not worrying or thinking just about like the ministry that's happening in the life of the disciples. He's having them think about what all that means in their relationship with Jesus. My next passage, and this one's a little bit weightier. "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of the Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, 'Lord, Lord, do we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons, and in your name perform many miracles?' Then I will tell them plainly, 'I never knew you. Away from me, evildoers.'" Now, the reason that I love this passage is because one of the implications is that it's possible to prophesy in the name of Jesus, drive out demons in the name of Jesus, perform miracles in the name of Jesus. And if we're not cool, if we're not like having a relationship with the Lord and being faithful to his commandments, it's going to be possible that he's going to turn us away, right? So again, this goes back to loving relationship with Jesus, doing the commandments, and not out of just like commitment, but out of love. And that comes with spending time with Jesus. Last one. Paul says in Philippians 3:8, "Yes, everything else is worthless when compared with the infinite value of knowing Jesus Christ, my Lord. For his sake, I have discarded everything else, counting it all as garbage so that I could gain Christ." And what Paul's referring to, right? Like Paul was like a super Jew of Jews. You know what I mean? The brother was like from the tribe of Benjamin. He was circumcised on the 8th day, right? He had like the credentials, that the Jewish people at the time thought, oh, this guy's awesome, in terms of his passion for God, the guy was a Pharisee. He says, all that stuff, all that good stuff that you guys would say would make me, awesome person in the eyes of the people, that's worthless when I compare it to the knowledge of Jesus. In other words, my relationship with Jesus and knowing Jesus is more important than anything else that I think qualifies me. Okay, so these 4 verses are at the core of my encouragement, and people that I coach say, hey, you need to spend time with Jesus. Okay, and I have requirements of the people that I coach that Rigo's going to get into. Rigo, do you want to respond about how these passages have been true in your life? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing just for the sake of getting a little bit more personal.
Yeah, of course. So for me, again, all these verses are really great. And so, as you can notice, the central theme is about having that relationship with Jesus, having that relationship with God. Because for me, I remember when I was restarting La Fe, restarting the ministry, I didn't have all those great things that Paul had. Like Abner just referenced at the last passage of just having that, like, all that Bible knowledge, all of that things. And so for me, what that verse tells me as someone who was restarting was just like, oh, like all that matters, all that I need to start a ministry, and something that I also tell students who I coach is just like, all you need is to have that personal relationship with Jesus. That's all you need to start it, and that's all that you need. And all that really just matters as well. Because again, just like we saw in John 15, of just being apart, we can't do anything. It's just so true. Because again, I could be, like doing all the research, right? For like Bible studies, I can be doing all these things. And if God's not there, then it's just going to be a bunch of literature. It might as well just be an English class. And so for me, again, what's very important, even from the start when I was restarting, and what I tell, students and the current leader of La Fe right now, is just making sure that we have that devotional prayer that we have, making sure that we are able to just have that personal time with God, because then that authentic relationship that we have with God is going to be seen through that ministry that we have as well. And we'll not only be able to have that strong ministry, but also just making sure that it grows on from there as well.
So whenever I get into a coaching relationship, right, where people say, hey, Abner, will you coach me in planting this ministry? Usually that's the case. I always say, okay, awesome. I would love to coach you. Can you commit to praying at least 5 times a week for at least 30 minutes a day? Right? And then people look at me like, well, I thought you were going to coach me on strategy. I'm like, you want strategy without the Spirit of God? Yeah, I'm unwilling to do that. Rigo, do you have your devotion on you right now?
I do, actually. Yeah, so actually Abner recommended me this book. It's called Seeking God's Face. And for me, I used to not be into devotionals, but it's definitely helped me to organize that new habit of just, because again, like, it's all cool having that relationship with God, right? Or, I'm guilty of this too. Sometimes, like, before a meal, right? Pray, right? And you just do that basic prayer and that's it. But what this devotional does is it helps me to have that intentional time that I need with Jesus as well.
Okay, I'm going to have us respond. And here's what I want to clarify. You came to a webinar that was talking about coaching, thinking about strategy probably. And we just spent 10 minutes talking to you about relationship with Jesus and all these passages about relationship with Jesus. Probably not what most of you were expecting. But what are you hearing? Okay, how do these passages and Rigo's story impact how are you receiving the training so far? Grace, can we send them into breakout rooms to have that discussion? And just have two breakout rooms, and then we'll bring them back. Give them 2 minutes to do that. So how does it strike you that in a seminar or a webinar about coaching, the first and most important thing, the thing that we're going to spend the most time on, is your life with Jesus? Go for it, Grace.
How long?
2 minutes?
2 minutes, yeah. Okay.
So quickly, okay? We're not talking up a paragraph. This is like shotgun. Bam, bam, this strikes me this way. And then you guys are going to come back and share with Rigo and I, okay? Bro, it's 1:20 already, 1:18.
I know.
All right, people are going to start coming back. I think we've got one more group. Is that right, Grace? Got the other group? Okay.
Audio not muted.
There you go. Okay, we got everybody back. All right, you came to a seminar, a webinar talking about coaching, and I hit you with Life with God. Let's get some reactions. And again, just one or two sentences. This is what strikes me. This is what was challenging to me. Unmute yourselves. And again, if not, I'm going to start calling on people.
I would just say that I'm a brand new InterVarsity volunteer, so I was relieved to hear you start such a seminar with this emphasis, because I completely agree it's the most important. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimmy. Anybody else struck by that?
Audio not muted.
Hi, my name is Daryl. To be honest, I've never even led before, like a big group. So I'm actually just recently, through this coronavirus, I started learning how to lead. So at this point, I'm learning this. I decided to join this, but more so, I'm not that point where I can, teach people to lead. I'm just learning how myself to lead the group,
Right.
Well, you're going to need that life with God, Nero, to begin leading other people.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. Andrew, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I think for myself, it was good to just like set the priorities of leading a group, because obviously when you think of leading, the first thing that comes to mind is like what to do. But I think it's good that we set the priority as like what our identity is.
Amen. Yeah. So when you guys are coaching people, when you guys take on people who you want to mentor, just make sure that, hey, that you're praying all the time. That's a non-negotiable. We get so many alumni who like graduate and they say, oh my gosh, we don't have all the structures that we had when we were students and I don't know what to do. Well, if the first structure that we had was prayer and life with Jesus, you probably wouldn't be struggling as much as an alumni. The one thing that will be consistent when you graduate will be relationship with Jesus. So make sure that you get that right now, not just for yourself, but for the people that you're leading. Amen? Okay. Second thing that we wanted to talk about, and I'll go back into our screen share, is just the importance of network mapping. Now, what is a network map? A network map, I tell people, it's a physical representation of a relational reality. It's like a picture that you paint to help people think about who they have influence or who they're connected to in their lives. So let me give you an example. This is my network map currently. This is my COVID-19 network map. These are the people that I interact with on a weekly basis several times. So you got Abner in the middle, that's me. I'm part of the La Fe team. This is the La Fe is the Latino Fellowship of InterVarsity. All the people on this team are people who work in the department. This is my direct supervisor, my boss, Rene, and his boss, Orlando, and all these people are my coworkers, okay? I see all those people, again, on a weekly basis. The other team that I work on is the planting team. Some of you guys know Sean Young. He's the director of planting, and these are all my coworkers on that team. I'm a member of that team. I'm also part of a church leadership team, right? I'm probably in the process of planting a church with some of these people. And this is my wife, Molly, and this is Jesse and Tammy. They're married, and this is Jen. And we all meet together 2 or 3 times a week to talk about where the direction of the church is going, trying to plant a church on Zoom, okay? And here's my family. Molly, again, I could probably do another line. Santiago's going to be 8 years old. He's my son, and Mina's my daughter. Again, this is a physical representation of my relational reality. If we were on campus, right, if we weren't in a time of pandemic, my network map for the moment would probably be a little bit bigger. In other words, I'm relating, interacting with more people, but because, I'm in LA, I don't know what the other parts of the country are looking like. We're on shutdown probably through June, I think they said, maybe even August, I forget. But we ain't going anywhere. This is my relational network map probably for the next 4 months. When you're on campus, this network map expands and contracts, right? It represents your relational reality. Who are you hanging out with? Who do you know? Sometimes even who you don't know, which I think Lee was going to cover a little bit. One of the things that I help people consider when they're writing a network map, so it's not just for me, in my opinion, not good enough just for you to write down the people that you have influence or are hanging out with. I also try to help staff and students write down where are those people at in their leadership capacity, their leadership pathway. And in a planting situation, I'm in the planting department, I'm always thinking about that, right? I'm helping people, students like Rigo, think through who are your potential missional Christians in that group, who are potential apprentices or current apprentices, are there any leaders or co-leaders in your group, and are there any network leaders, leaders of leaders. You could also, if you wanted to, when you're drawing a network map, write down who your non-Christian students are and your non-Christian friends are. And if you really fancy, if you wanted to do like the 5 thresholds of evangelism, if you don't know that, you're going to need to go to the evangelism part of the InterVarsity website and write down where people are at in their spiritual journey. Again, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help the person that I coach get a bird's eye view of the people that the Lord has put in their lives. So I did this with Rigo. This was one of the first things the first lessons that I did with Rigo. And he came back and he drew his network map of the La Fe ministry. This was the first network map that he wrote. And I have to tell you, this is probably one of the best network maps anybody has ever written. I use this network map for training purposes with staff also. And people are always floored. So I'm going to have Rigo take you through his network map, and I'm going to ask him some questions. Go for it, Rigo. Take it through your network map.
Yeah, of course. So again, as Abner mentioned, this was one of many maps that I created. Again, emphasizing that, these network maps changes, especially in this times of pandemic. But also, even if it weren't for the pandemic, just seeing like, who is it that you're really talking to on a day-to-day basis? So I would change it every few months. And so for me, the reason why I used this network map was for 2 things. One, I wanted to see where my people, where the people in La Fe, where are they at? What were they involved with? And so as you could see, I would put like their name and I would put like where are they at? And so some of the examples were like noticing a lot of them will be from El Centro Chicano, or now called La Casa, which is the Latino Resource Center at USC. Another thing that I would notice is like other clubs or fraternities or all these things. And so for me, one reason why I used this map was to find out for new ideas of outreach. Just seeing like, okay, maybe there's some orgs that I could collab with, such as SHIP, which is the engineering org that I was a part of. And I noticed a few of my friends were also a part of as well.
SHIP right there.
Exactly. And so, but I would say the most important thing that came out of this map was just seeing like, okay, kind of like what Abner mentioned, like what is the leadership potential of these students? And so as you could see in the top, I put color code, seeing like, okay, who's a faith seeker, missional Christian, or potential one. And so for me, and we'll talk about it later on actually with Abner, of just, okay, it's important to have genetics leaders for La Fe. And so as you can tell, and actually something that Abner reminded me the other day, was the closer the people were to me, as in like the boxes, I considered those to be the closest, as in those are the people who I talk to the most. And as you can see, there's Christian Salinas, which is right to my left. He's actually the current La Fe leader. And if it weren't for this map, I wouldn't have noticed like, oh, like, okay, what is Christian involved with? Or what is it that, would make him a great leader and all these things. And not only the people who are close, but also those who are far apart, such as Edgar Bustos, which is actually close over here. Yeah. He's also one of those leaders that came up after me. And so again, this map just made it more apparent for me, just seeing, okay, where are people involved with on campus? Maybe I should get more involved with those orgs, or also seeing, which is important at the time, of just seeing who are the next leaders for La Fe, who can I mentor, who can I give advice to, and who do I see going beyond me?
Yeah, one of the things that really impressed me about this network map was the fact that Rigo, unlike my network map, right? I put myself in the middle of my network map. Rigo actually put the La Fe ministry in the middle of his network map, and he just understood that he was part of that group, but he wasn't the center of that group. He puts himself over here at the side. One of the things that I noticed as somebody who was his coach is Rigoberto Sanchez Bravo is crazy involved in all these organizations. Okay, these are the organizations that he had been a part of and this is midway through his junior year. But some of these other students also have a lot of different organizations that they're a part of. So I began asking questions like you mentioned, are there orgs that you could begin to partner with? Because what I knew about the USC culture is that they love to collaborate. They love to network. You are nobody on campus at USC if you're not part of a club and if you're not partnering with other clubs, right? So that's why it's important for Rigo to put what clubs they're part of, because there are no individuals in the Latino community at USC. You're always part of some kind of community, and he reflected that in his network map. The other thing that I love, about what Rigo did that he mentioned, is he put the people who are close to him physically. And then he told me exactly where he thought people were. So we got a potential missional Christian. These guys were not in leadership yet, but he identified that, hey, this is where they're at. They're potential missional Christians. I have more relationship with Isaac, but I don't know what happened with Isaac, right? It didn't pan out with Isaac. He didn't become a leader, but Christian did. So what I'm trying to do with this in my coaching is I'm trying to teach Rigo, in this case, to think creatively about this network map, right? These are the people that the Lord has put in his life. And sometimes when we think about ministry, the people that we want to influence, or like, let's say we want to start that Bible study, sometimes students will say, well, I want to go reach that one club. And my question is going to be, well, do you even have people that you know in that club? And oftentimes the answer is no. And I'm like, then why are you thinking about that club if you don't even have a relationship with people there? Maybe the first thing that you need to do is go hang out with Pedro, and go find out who he hangs out with. Or better yet, try to get something started with the people that are actually around you and begin thinking about how to influence them. Now, most people that come my way in the planting department want to start new things, right? So for Rigo, he had replanted the ministry. And the mistake that people do in planting when they use a network map is they say, okay, like, we want to plant a ministry, write out your network map. And they do their network map one time and then they never come back to it, which is like a big mistake, okay? A network map, you probably want to write it out maybe every 3 or 4 weeks, because people's relational networks change all the time. Like, think about the fact that sometimes maybe you meet a student in class, you get a new friend, and you want to add those people to your network map. That's another potential person that the Lord has put, in your sphere of influence to love on, to disciple, to share the gospel with, and maybe develop as a leader, okay? So in your coaching of people, what you probably want to do is come back to the network map at the very least once a month, preferably every 2 weeks, so that you could together talk about what has the Lord been doing in your life and in the people that you're influencing. Let me stop real quick. Any questions about that, about the network map and how it's used at this point?
Yeah, I do. Sorry, Abner. What the map that you illustrated, are these, do they have the role of a ministry? Like, one is outreach, other one is worship, and other one is like, I don't know how they call it, but so those are the main core people, or are they just like, how like students come to the table, they just sign up to volunteer? No, they just sign up. Or these are the students to just come in just to show up, or they're the students that has been committed and now they are looking for opportunity to serve in those areas?
Yeah, so Rigo's network map specifically was of all the Latino students that he knew, right? So you need to think about what it is that you're trying to do. So John, let's say that you're trying to start a new Bible study in a certain dorm or on your floor. Then what I would ask you to do is draw out the network map of everybody that you know on the floor. If you came to me and said, I want to reach everybody on the basketball team, then I would say, then let's draw a map of everybody on your basketball team. So it just depends on what your goal is, which is the next thing that we're going to talk about. You need to be very clear when you're mentoring and coaching people why it is that you're having them draw draw a network map. For Rigo, it was, if you want to advance the mission of La Fe on your campus, La Fe is a ministry outreach to Latino students. Show me everybody that you know. And he's continued to do that with the people that he's mentored, with Edgar and with Christian. I'm going to move us on just for the sake of time. I'm realizing an hour is a very short time.
Sorry for taking your time, though.
No, not at all, not at all. I just wish we had 90 minutes. And if you guys want, you could, hit me up via email or maybe stay afterwards. Is it possible, Grace, for people to stay afterwards? Yeah, and ask me questions afterwards. That's cool too. Another thing that I think is just very important is to really have clear goals about what it is that you're trying to coach people in. Okay, so what do people need help in? What skill are you trying to impart? What is the thing, the attainable thing that you're trying to get at? So when Rigo came to me, Rigo, would you tell him really quickly what it is that you were trying to do when you reached out to me?
Yeah, and so I reached out to you like a year and a half ago, and I reached out for, again, I was planning a retreat at the time. But not only did I want to learn, and by the way, this is the first time I was doing a retreat or, planning all these things. But something that I want to do is, one, create like a good retreat with a good foundation. But I wanted to see fruit out of that retreat. And the two things that I wanted to see was community, a strong community, because that was something that we needed. And somehow to form leaders from that retreat as well.
Yeah, so he comes to me, he signs up probably through the InterVarsity La Fe website. Rigo, I forgot how we connected. And he says, help me plan this retreat. We need community and we need leaders, okay? So that's the short-term goal. But on my end, I have a different goal with Rigo. That's overlapping, but the timeline of it is a little bit different. To back things up, okay? I helped plant the La Fe ministry at USC about 6 or 7 years ago. And we've had to replant this thing like every 2 years. Okay, why? Because the current leader graduates, and then they didn't raise up any leaders, and then they leave, and then there's a vacuum left. Somebody else comes and says, it would be awesome, La Fe on this campus. And I'm like, that sounds like a great idea. Let me help you replant this thing. They have no idea it's a replant, right? To them, it's like something new. Bam, that person graduates, they didn't raise up any leaders. So Rigo was, and I'm not even kidding, like the 4th generation of student leaders that have come to me, and I'm just like, yo, I love USC, I'm a Bruin UCLA alumni, so those are rival schools, but I love USC. I want to see Latino students on that campus be blessed, but we can't have this revolving door of leadership. So my long-term goal for this ministry is I want to help Rigo replicate himself. And what I told him was, Rigo, look, this was in February of 2019. He's telling me he's going to graduate in May, June of 2020. And I said, you have 1 year to replicate yourself. So you want to do this conference, you want community, but my long-term goal for you is that thing that you're trying to do will have an impact on the leadership transition, and you have 1 year. And he says, no, I actually have a year and a half, bro. I'm like, you don't have a year and a half, because a year from now, you're going to get senioritis come January, February of 2020, and you're not going to want to do anything. You're going to be like, I'm not even thinking of La Fe. I'm thinking about graduating. You have 1 year. And that was our goal, okay? So my long-term goal for this brother is to help him not have a replant all over again. And his immediate goal is, let me get some leaders and some community. All that to say, when you are coaching people, you need clear-cut goals, both the long-term and the short-term. So I'll give you an example. Somebody comes to me and says, I want to plant a Bible study in my basketball team. Okay, that's your long-term goal. How are you going to measure that? You probably have, let's say, 10 students. I want 10 students, 10 players from my basketball team to be involved in some kind of Bible study. Well, there are little goals along the way that we're going to try to get to before we even get to the long-term goal of having this thing planted. So what you're coaching for is the little goals, the week by week goals, the attainable goals. So for Rigo is, It was, I'm going to help him come up with a good, solid plan for this La Fe retreat. I'm going to help him be accountable for what are the other things that you need to accomplish to even get people there. What are you going to do with them? Okay, how are you going to handle the finances? All those are smaller goals towards his goal of having an awesome conference. Okay, so practically speaking, okay, what do you want to see in your coaching calls with people? You obviously start with prayer, like we mentioned. Always ask, how has your life with God been? And I would say, hold people accountable. Say, have you been praying? And if you haven't been praying, then you and I need to think about if we wanted to continue this coaching relationship. Yo, I'm hardcore. I just want you guys to know. Some people don't like that. Some people are like, why are you trying to like get people to pray in order for you to be their coach? I'm all like, are you kidding me? You know, I think it's a non-negotiable. Life with God. I always tell people my primary goal above all goals is to help you love Jesus more. Okay? And if I coach you for the next 6 months and you don't love Jesus more at the end of this, then I failed you as a coach. One way that I know how to help you fall in love with Jesus is I'm going to ask you to pray every day. So we're going to talk about that. First thing that we're going to do after prayer is we're going to debrief. Hey, what happened in your ministry over the last 2 weeks? What were your highs and your lows? In other words, right now we're looking backwards, right? Like we made a plan 2 weeks ago, and now I'm going to ask you like, hey, how did that go? Did it go well? Did it go poorly? Why? And then we're going to ask questions. Okay, what questions do you have? Maybe somebody's been ghosting you for the last 2 weeks. Why do you think that person's been ignoring you? You know, did you actually call them? Did you just text them? Did you email them? Did you use everything at your disposal to communicate this with this person? And if the answer is no, then that needs to be part of the next plan. Then when we're done debriefing, we enter into a time of setting some goals, right? What needs to happen in the next 2 or 3 weeks? In other words, what is the next attainable thing? What is the thing that you can say, yes, Abner, I called those 15 people, right? What is the thing that you can say, yes, I prepped that Bible study. Yes, I did pray every day like I was supposed to, all these things. What options do you have for executing that plan? So I'm at number 5 now. What options do you have moving forward, and what do you want to commit to? Right? You might have a goal that you want to attain, but there might be 2 or 3 different options for how to go about it. So which one are you excited about, Rigo? Which one do you have time for? How can you pull it off? And then lastly, and probably just as important as everything else, is putting in your calendar, both of your calendars, when is our next meeting, right? So with Rigo, I have a system that I use online. It's a website called Calendly. Calendly syncs with my Outlook. And when Rigo goes in there, he has full access to my entire schedule. And he says, oh, Abner's available 3 weeks from now at 1 p.m. Bam, he puts his name on there. Calendly creates a message in my Outlook. So that time is set up. It creates a Zoom meeting automatically. And he gets emailed. Do you get text too sent to you?
Yeah, I do. I get emails and texts.
Hey, that system will hound this brother. You know, in other words, you're going to get emails, texts. If I could do smoke signals, that would be awesome. So if Rigo says, dude, I forgot about my meeting, I'd be like, yo, you're lying to me, bro. Because the system is automated. I set it up. I have had people tell me, why is your system so hardcore about contacting me? And I tell people it's because I have people who still tell me I forgot about your meeting. And I'm like, you're lying to me, man. The system is doing its thing. Anyways, that's important because one of the things that you need to do is you need to make sure that people can access you, that they have time to hang out with you. Last thing. Was that Siri? No, Siri. I did not talk to you. That was weird. Fourth thing, and this is the final thing that I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to hand it over to Rigo. Just accountability. You know, I think when you think about coaching in general, there are sometimes unwritten rules or written rules, written agreements between players and the coaches. Let me give you an example. My son wants to play soccer. He's in AYSO. And he's decided that he wants to spend, 4 months out of the year playing soccer. Well, what that means is he is responsible for making it to practice. He's responsible for doing everything that coach tells him. This last coach that he had, his soccer coach, said, hey, I know you guys are only 7 years old, and I know that you guys are coming to practice twice a week. Most coaches will let you wear whatever you want to wear for practice. Uniforms are on game day on Saturdays, but on my team, if you're going to be on my team, for practices, you're going to wear a white shirt. You're going to wear black shorts, white socks. You're always going to have your shin guards. If I don't see shin guards on you, you can't practice. And I will allow you to wear whatever color shoes you want, okay? But you're part of a team. And I'm teaching you how to follow instructions. I'm teaching you to know that you're not just an individual, that you're part of this team, and you need to submit to the things that I tell you, okay? Now, we all understand that. When we hear that, we're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But you know what? It's the same in coaching and ministry, okay? If you want to get better, if you want to see the goals and the plans that you set for yourselves come into fruition, if you want to see any success, then you need to have some kind of accountability in your life. Accountability is not just about somebody getting up in your face and praying with you about your sin, right? That's most of the time when we think about Christian accountability. It's that person that you go to when periodically, like every 2 or 3 weeks or something, whatever it is, to confess your sin, and that person prays with you and helps hold you accountable. No, accountability also means God called me to be the leader at Lafayette USC. I need help. You are somebody who has expertise. Abner, what do I need to do? Right? And what I told Rigo is, this is not going to work if you just go do whatever you want to do, bro. You and I need to meet every 3 or 4 weeks. That's non-negotiable. You're not going to stand me up. If something changes with your work schedule, text me. But it's your responsibility to get back on Calendly and reschedule our meeting. That's not my responsibility. That's yours. We're going to take notes together on Google File. And we still do this. In fact, for this training, we're Googling together. I'm going to see your plan, and I'm going to ask you about it. And the first thing that I'm going to ask you after your relationship with Jesus questions, your prayer time, in our coaching template is, did you do it? Or did you not do it? So that to a lot of people feels like that's high bar, okay? So I asked Rigo, how did you experience that type of accountability?
Yeah, and so again, I guess a little bit more about me is like, before I reached out to Abner, I had already been trying to restart Lafayette for about a year. So I started my sophomore year. And for me, I understood what it meant to be alone and not to have much guidance. And so when I had this structure, and, as he likes to put it, hardcore, for me, I felt that it was a blessing because, again, for me, I understood that I needed the help. I needed that person to keep me accountable for these goals. And yeah, I'm not going to lie, like some of the things that Abner and I would plan, like these outreach events, I would be like, yeah, I did it. How did it go? It didn't go so well. And, I had to be honest. And so that's something that I find very important. And even now when I'm coaching like students, like Christian, for instance, he'll come and tell me like, oh yeah, I didn't pray, or oh, I didn't do this. And, it is important as someone who's coaching, not to like go down on them, but just like having that honesty and vulnerability, because I also went through it too. I was just like him. I also sometimes wouldn't pray or sometimes wouldn't do this. And so for me, accountability is not just, all right, did you do the goal? But also like, all right, let's talk about it. All right, you did mistakes. All right, how do we improve this? How do we do this together? And that's something that I learned from Abner in our sessions. And that's something that I still do with Christian. And actually, funny enough, just 2 days ago, he just messaged me because he's currently visioning for this next year for Lafayette. And he was asking me about all these things. And I feel like whenever you're honest and you're vulnerable about these things, that will happen. Like that natural sense of like keeping each other accountable. He still wants that accountability. And that's something that I learned through Abner and something that I tried to implant as well.
I think what makes this work is I always start with, Rigo, how you doing, bro? How's your relationship with Jesus? But what has the Lord been telling you in prayer? Right? And Rigo understands that I love him, that I respect him. But after I ask the questions, the Jesus questions, the spiritual questions, all right, bro, let's own up, like how did it go down? And it's worked really well. Just for the record, La Fe has not had a staff worker for 3.5 years. Rigo has replicated himself. That campus does not have a La Fe staff. In fact, I don't think it has any staff right now. Rigo has replicated himself and has not been the center of that ministry going on for a while now. So he has passed on what he knows of leading La Fe to somebody else who he is teaching to entrust to others to teach, to make sure that we don't have an implosion of leadership. So Rigo, can you share with us what you've been doing in your ministry, in your coaching ministry? And if you can go like 5 or 6 minutes, bro, to like leave room for questions at the end, it'd be great. So you got at most 5 or 6 minutes.
All right, cool. Oh, Abner, could you share the on your screen? Good, I think you have it. But yeah, so what Abner is referring to is I was during this time starting to do these testimonies, or as Abner likes to call them, trainings, because to be honest, yes, that's what they were. They were trainings, not really testimonies. But for me, again, it was important to like pass on what I learned. As Abner and I keep telling, like we need to replicate ourselves. And so for me, I went on to create these slides, and these are a few of the slides that I created throughout this time. I believe, last month, in which I went over key things that I learned, whether that's through Bible studies, prayer. This one specifically is on Bible studies, even though it says praying. And so again, the concepts that we were just talking about for coaching, they don't just stop at coaching. This is also something that I learned that was needed for Bible studies. Because again, you could do all the research. I mentioned this before. You could do all the research on the stories and stuff, but if God's not there, then it's just an English class. So again, just learning to pray with hunger and thirst and visioning. Going on to other slides as well. I started talking about outreach, and this is like a valuable lesson that I learned the hard way, actually, because at first in that year that I was unguided, I'm gonna be honest, I was after those numbers. And again, like throughout these slides, I just share about my experiences and learning that, wait, no, it's not about numbers. It's about being a hospital, caring for students, and passing that on to Christian, that now he understands that, oh, it's all about, empowering these students, as I say here, like getting people involved with the vision, having that community vision, having that personal experience, and then inviting other people to start that cycle again. And another thing that I would also teach in these slides is just, again, all these personal experiences, but more importantly, just sharing them. As I believe the next one is about Sabbathing, in which, not Sabbathing, about Bible studies, in which I talk about being engaging, not procrastinating. And I guess that's something that I even implemented even in my network map without realizing it, not putting myself in the middle. I did that very purposely because, again, I understood that once I leave, if I'm in the middle, then it's gone. And so for me, it was important to put the ministry first, to put God first, even before ministry, put God first. And so whenever you talk about Bible studies, it's more about, facilitating the discussion, allowing others to speak, and again, reminding people that's about prayer, and all these other advice that I would give, before even doing a Bible study. And the last thing that I would share too is just about Sabbathing, which is something that I learned much later in ministry, but something that I wanted to share as well, of just seeing how you need to find rest in everything that you do, whether that's ministry, academics, family, and the way how you do that is through humbling yourself under God's wings. And this is something, again, we talk about it in coaching, having that life with God, that is how you rest. And those are things that I realized that were important, not only for praying, not only for coaching, but in everything that you do. But yeah, so these are some of the things that I would teach.
So as you can see, Rio came to me wanting to plan a conference, right? Plan a retreat. We began getting goals about long-term goals to replicate himself. He's replicated himself, and now he's back to the drawing board. What are other lessons that I could train and teach people? What you guys don't know is that those 4 slides he showed you is actually part of a bigger set of slides, like 30 slides or something like that, like a 4-week training that he's been giving other leaders, not just in Lafayette, but beyond Lafayette at USC. Again, this campus is staffless at the moment. And I think Rigo has taken everything that he learned in our relationship to train up Lafayette, and now he's thinking, what are other things that I can impart in people? What do I have to offer, and how do I pass it down? And he's been proactive, you know, in passing everything that he knows to other people. So we talked a lot, you know, it's kind of like rapid fire. This session is being recorded, obviously, but we wanted to open it up just for questions and comments. I know we probably won't get to everybody, but if you have like a question that you really want to get to, just go ahead, throw it our way. And if you all need to take off at 2 p.m., you know, Pacific to go do something else, that's awesome also. Grace, I'll just let you tell us when we need to take off. In other words, when do we need to actually stop? But let's open it up for questions and comments.
I was wondering how long do you have to prepare yourself to lead, and then closer to your graduation, how far and how long do you need to prepare your people to lead after you graduate? So it's kind of like multiplying, right?
Rigo, how would you answer that?
Yeah. So
that's the question I have.
Yeah. That's a really good question. And so for me, again, I started early on. I started my sophomore year, and I actually had no choice because, again, like Abner alluded to, our current leader had left that year, my freshman year, and I didn't want Lafayette to die, and so I took it on early on. But you answer your question, I don't think, you know, you need to wait to start leading. I certainly didn't. And most importantly is to know that, you know, the best, and this is me personally, but I feel like experience will be the best teacher of just going in there, doing Bible studies, making sure that you learn like how to do all these things. So that's something that I would say. And what was the second part to your question, by the way? You said starting to lead early, but the second part?
Well, the second part is, let's say I'm graduating in 2022. Now it's 2020. So I'm already in 2 years in university. That's an example. And then, and I'm going to become a junior. So I have some freshmen coming in. And then they say, hey, I like this club. I like this InterVarsity. I want to learn how to lead. So how, I would like to know how long do I need to mentor the new student so they can become a leader in 2 years? Because like Jesus ministry, 2 or 3 years, right?
Yeah.
So the 4 years of universities, that means you have a chance to do it 2 years, 2 or 3 years. I hope that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, John, there's different ways to think about that, right? Like if you're saying that you're graduating in 2022, I give you to like, January, February of 2022 before you're like not even thinking about your campus anymore, bro. See, that might be like, you know, think about when you guys graduated from high school. Seriously, how many of you guys were thinking about your high school come March of your senior year? Most of you guys were like about to peace out. You didn't care about your high school anymore. You wanted out. You know what I mean? It's going to be the same in your leadership transitions in your ministries. So I think for you, John, you probably have 1.5 years left in you. And I would say that in a normal operating procedures, you know, like usually you take the summer off. But right now, it's all fair game. So if you want to begin training and coaching people now, you don't got the school year. The school year doesn't matter in the same way anymore. So you can start doing this next week. But what I will say is you might want to think about it from like semester to semester. So who are the 2 people that you want to invest in the fall semester? And then what do you want to teach them, right? Like what kind of goals? Where do you want to get them to? and then you take on another 2, or maybe those first 2 you want to see through for a year. But you need to think clearly, like, well, what is it that you're trying to teach them? Again, what is their goal? What is your goal with them in their ministry? The other thing that I'll say is you need to come to an agreement, right? Like I said, hey, I'm going to be your coach. I'm going to be your mentor. This is going to last 6 months. This is going to last 12 months. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Rigo and I, we don't touch base that much about La Fe anymore. Like, I feel like I've done right by that brother. He's done right by the La Fe ministry at USC. But I love Rigo. I know him. And I want to continue thinking through about how to develop him beyond his role for La Fe. So I'm hanging out at a conference in Northern California about 3 months ago. And then I meet this really strong Latino leader from Shasta College named Josue. And this dude is like bigger than life, man. He's just like he's just on fire with the Lord, you know? And I'm hanging out with this guy and I'm like, man, this guy would be a great accountability partner and prayer partner for Rigo. So when I'm hanging out with Rigo, I'm like, hey, you want me to continue mentoring you? This is what you need to do. A, you need to commit to praying 5 times a week. I'm not letting go of that. But 2, I need to find you an accountability partner. Okay? And I think this guy, Josue, is it. So I call up Josue's staff worker. And I say, hey, I want to mentor this dude with Rigo. They need to connect. I'm willing to mentor both of them at the same time, but they need to commit to praying together every 2 weeks. And they need to commit to praying on their own 5 times a week. They're okay, we're down with that. I think that's a great message for Josue. I call up Josue. Josue, do you want me to mentor you? He's like, oh yeah, bro, I love it, you know? Okay, you need to pray 5 times a week and you need to connect with this dude Rigo, right? These guys connected, when was it, Saturday for the first time?
Yeah, actually, very recent, yeah.
Okay, you know? And now they're prayer and accountability partners. They're getting to know each other. They're realizing that the families are from the same state in Mexico. So they think they might be cousins, who knows? Latinos usually think that anyways, but you know, they might actually be related. And now I get to invest in 2 of my brothers, you know, for the next 6 months to a year. But the commitment is you all need to be praying, you know, and if they're not praying, if they're not having that quiet time 5 times, and I'll ask, how's your relationship with Jesus been? So.
Well, thank you for your help. I appreciate it.
Any other comments or questions? If not, we could call it a day. Rigo, will you close us in prayer, brother?
Yeah, of course. All right. Thank you, Jesus, for this time that you've given us, Lord. Father, I just thank you so much for this moment. Definitely, I'm thankful for your presence. Thank you for everything that you've done through Abner, through myself. I just pray that everything that we talked about, everything that we have said during this time, that it just be something that continues to multiply, continues to go on. As your word says, Lord, we can do nothing without you. And so I just pray that you accompany each and every one of us that are here and those that will hear it even after this recording, Lord, to continue to multiply, continue to lead, and more importantly, just to have that relationship with you, God, because that's where it's all at. That's where it's all worth. And yeah, Lord, I just pray for a blessing over each one of us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.